So if you've been following the news, you would know that a few weeks ago, the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, gave Tucker Carlson of Fox News access to 41,000 hours of video from the Capitol on January 6, 2021. So if you remember what happened on January 6th, there was basically a riot that was caused by people who went to the Capitol believing that they could somehow disrupt or change the outcome of the election by protesting at the Capitol. Now, that protest got out of hand and basically a riot ensued. As an immigrant looking at pictures of people climbing up the walls of Congress and people breaking windows and assaulting police officers and doing all those things made me feel a little ashamed that this happened in America. And the fact that a majority of those people who were there that day were people on the conservative side of the political aisle made it even more ashamed, because you know what happened there? The media, ever since I've been here in America, has been trying to create a narrative about conservatives. And the narrative has always been about the idea that conservatives are violent and have to be put in check because they will eventually usher in some kind of authoritarian regime and impose violence on the rest of the country. And unfortunately, the people who went to the Capitol that day played into that narrative. And so today, everybody can point to that footage and say, look, we told you, conservatives are violent people. Now, Tucker started showing some never-before-seen footage of what happened at the Capitol. And what we have learned from that footage is the fact that a lot of the narrative that we were given was not true. Now, don't get me wrong. There was violence at the Capitol. There were police officers who were injured. There were people who vandalized the place. There were people who were trespassing. All those things are true. But just because some of the things that happened are true and we all saw them with our own eyes, doesn't mean that the overall narrative is true. The narrative we were fed by the media was the idea that our entire system of government was on the verge of collapse. They characterize it as a deadly insurrection, an attempt to overthrow the government of the United States. That is the characterization. And that characterization comes with images that were not borne out by the video evidence. A large majority of the people who came to that Capitol that day were not violent. But those who were allowed the media to paint a picture they've been trying to paint of conservatives for generations. Now, another important part of that revelation comes back to my idea of orchestrated reality. What part of what happened on that day was orchestrated? Now, another important question that needs to be asked is what part of that day was actually orchestrated reality? Now, I don't have any personal evidence of this, but I have learned enough over the last few years to know that we cannot believe everything the government tells us. And so my eyes are open, my ears are open, and my hope is that everybody keeps an open mind and does not jump to the conclusions the government is making. We have learned that there were people who have now been prosecuted and sentenced to many years in jail who did not have access to some of this video evidence that could have at least shown a clearer picture of their involvement that day. And so gone are the days where I give, a tacit trust in what the government is telling us happened. Unfortunately, the actions of the government over the past few years have created more conspiracy theorists. And funny thing, someone said this, I thought it was pretty funny. He said, maybe we shouldn't call them conspiracy theories anymore because so many so-called conspiracy theories have been proven true. And so he said, maybe we should call it spoiler alert. No more conspiracy theories. They're just spoiler alerts. Because some of the things we thought were conspiracies have now been proven to be true. So in summary, this is all I'll say about January 6th. I wish it never happened. I wish the people who went that day were not lied to and were not told that somehow the vice president had the ability to not certify the votes. I wish people went home that day and doubled their efforts to fight another day at the ballot box. I wish conservatives didn't have to now look back when the media calls us violent people, when they try to paint with a broad brush every conservative across the country as being in support of what they call a violent insurrection and a coup attempt. I wish we didn't have to deal with that baggage, which means that we need to make better decisions going forward. We need to understand our rights. We need to understand our Constitution. We need to understand the parameters that surround how our president is chosen and what we can or cannot do. We need to seek the right avenues for the redress of our grievances. We cannot be the mob that we spent our political careers fighting against. And that's all I'm going to say about that.